Okay, so I will now call to order the special meeting of the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District Board of Directors for Wednesday, September 3rd. Rosie, when you can, please, roll call.
Yes, Director Cox? Here. Director Friel? Here. Director Pimentel?
Here.
Director Gallagher? Absent at this time.
Here. So there is nothing to report at closed sessions. We did not hold a closed session for today's meeting. Any agenda modifications for consideration from staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll move us into the public comment on matters not on today's agenda. We only have one item on today's agenda, so seeing any raised hands online, anyone wishing to speak on this item? Over to the anyone wishing to speak on items not on today's agenda with us in public? Okay. Seeing no raised hands, I'll close down the public comment, and then I'll open it up to comments from our board members.
Only because the fair is right around the corner, and we won't have a meeting until then, and the people who are watching now, just as a reminder, the fair is starting in a week from Wednesday. I look forward to seeing many of you there, and it'll be a great event. It always is. It's a great honor tradition that does a really decent job of empowering the voices in South County. So just concept.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members before we get into our one discussion item for today's meeting? I do see one raised hand from Julie Peterson.
This was just to say, I did not hear a word that Marcus said. So you might have to have the speakers placed a little differently.
Hi, Julie, can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, my comments were just acknowledging that the fair starts a week from Wednesday, and the fair is an important tradition in our community, and it's always historically done a really nice job of highlighting the Pajaro Valley in particular, and now it gives us a unique opportunity to have our voices heard even a little bit more. New leadership there.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll close down the comments from the board members and move on to our discussion items for today. This is Pajaro Valley Healthcare District External Partnership. We have a recommendation to do two things before the board. One, to approve the updated guiding principles dated September 3rd, 2025. The Pajaro Valley Healthcare District External Partnership discussion, and two, authorize staff to distribute updated guiding principles when discussing proposals with external partners. And Steve did a great job, and staff of putting together a great board report for us on this, including the guiding principles. We have a set of 10 now, and Steve, if you'd like to give us an introduction, and then maybe we go over them and just get additional feedback from the board that is not specific.
Yeah, thanks. I think you did it well, and I would just point folks to the packet, which really has 2 pages. The first is the proposed new 10 guiding principles, and then on the back, or the second page, is sort of the side-by-side of the ones that we had a year ago, and then the new ones that are there for
It'll go away.
Go ahead, Steve.
I apologize.
second page is the side-by-side of what we had a year ago, side-by-side with what is new. And this is, all of these changes are based on the conversations that we've had, either I've had with board members, or that we really had a lot of that conversation at the board meeting last week. So I think probably the idea for today is to approve or make any edits to the main page that has the 10, and use the other page as kind of your, reference point for, what did that say before?
Alex, anything that you or I would like to add in terms of the discussion that led to these edits, and then also, from our first, meeting, or, late last week?
I think that the changes are reflected well on that last page, just for people that are trying to follow, looking at the original versus the new. And, there's a lot of really deep discussion about these and ensuring that we have to be, number one, very clear in regard to missions being aligned with mission, vision, and values, which we talked about at the board meeting last week. But, other than that, I think it was just a lot of hard work by the team, make sure, need to make sure that things were written, appropriately.
Okay, so at this time, any questions, Director Note and Director Gallagher, just joined us at 5:39. Any questions for the board, or I'm sorry, any questions from the board or staff at this moment about the guiding principles? Marcus?
I appreciate the quick work ad hoc committee staff did on this. It's really very thoughtful. What I would ask is, given that it's been a few days since you guys may have met and reviewed this, does anything else come to mind? I mean, I'm thinking in the context of things, many things are equally true. One is we're setting principles of which further discussions could happen with potential partners, which means everything has to come back to our board to say we like it, we don't like it, and be able to have more questions and look at it through a community lens to make sure it's the right thing for us. I would be more comfortable, I am comfortable with making sure that the options that we're able to have with partners are as broad as possible, and that we're still the gatekeeper if we like that idea or not. So from that perspective, is there anything the ad hoc members or staff that you guys might have been, fighting with the language with, that now in hindsight you might say, well, if this wasn't here, that might open up this door. Like I'm looking at, I'll use an example, the new item 2 that was formerly item 3, retain service line expansion as a, everything must prioritize this. I say that's great, but would that be a limiting factor if somebody were to propose something that isn't a service line expansion? That we might still want to do, but remove it out as a, unless it's a service line expansion, we're not really going to consider it. And I know this one says prioritize and not necessarily, but I'm just asking, like, as that is an example, is there anything that maybe you guys were talking about that you might have been wordsmithing or since then that you might come back with and say, this would give us a little bit more latitude? That's just a question.
I think we, ideally, we're operating from your first point, which was, how do we have our values as a board and really as a community also reflected in these, and then while also giving our staff, our leadership, enough wiggle room to be innovative in this process, right?
Yep.
I think number 2, if I remember correctly, was a holdover from coming back around from number 3. And I think as I was thinking through these, definitely wanted to put them as nebulous as possible, while also still championing that any sort of partnership arrangement, is not only important for the hospital to provide service, but to also expand service here. Continue the vision that this district had for this hospital. So I think these are outward facing, and they're one that, we also wanted to.
Can we just focus on number two?
Yes.
Because I agree, I feel like why, could it potentially say arrangements must prioritize innovation, growth, and financial. Open it.
Broaden it further. Good.
I think keeping it as broad as possible, not backing ourselves into like some directions for someone else.
And then, so the example I was gonna give was reflective of the type of partnerships that we would like to get into is number 10. The only not-for-profit government-based agencies, the only ones that already provide healthcare locally shall be considered as a, here are the folks that we're trying to partner with and the folks that we know will be good partners with us in our community. I think, the physician recruitment, service line expansion, and the financial stability and upgrades to supporting technology. When I was reading those through, those are our strategic priorities for the district and for the hospital strategic plan, so that's the way I was looking at those, but, I agree, if we can broaden that in a way that makes sense, that would be, yeah, that would be acceptable. What was the phrasing that you had? Innovation?
I use, arrangements must prioritize innovation, expansion, and
Financial
I use sustainability.
Right. Stability.
You said innovation, growth, and financial stability or sustainability. Do you have a preference? Stability or sustainability?
Sustainability.
That's one of our strategic priorities, right? Right, yeah. Folks on the phone, can you hear me okay? Julie, can you hear me all right? All right, so I'm in front of the microphone here. Director Gallagher, would you like me to tick through the edits or the suggestions that you had sent to me? Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies for the noise.
Here.
I had a couple of wordsmithing things starting at number 10. It ends with locally, and I would suggest defining locally as Northern California. Number 7 has the word appropriate protections. I always find the word appropriate kind of nebulous. I chose a slightly less nebulous word suggesting adequate protections. On number 4, in a conversation, Steve had mentioned that one of the people he was in contact with had asked if we would be willing to sell a hospital without the definition of whether that was the capital assets, property, or the business. And number 4 covers the capital assets and the real property, but it doesn't cover the idea of selling the business. I think it's worth a discussion. And then in number 3, it talks about contract extensions. I would suggest changing the term contract extensions to negotiating future contracts. Let me read number 3. As written, it says arrangements must commit to honoring sorry, that's my version. Those arrangements must commit to honoring existing union relationships through the ending of existing contracts. Negotiating extensions in good faith and retaining WCH employees with the ability to consolidate services for efficiency through attrition. I propose changing it to read, arrangements must commit to honoring existing union relationships through the end of the existing contracts, comma, negotiating future labor contracts in good faith with the unions currently at WCH and retaining WCH employees with the ability to consolidate services for efficiency through attrition. So it's really just getting rid of that idea of just contract extensions. Those are my proposals. And my apologies for the lateness.
No problem at all. So how do we?
Thanks. Do you mind if I jump in? So I have taken the notes on those, in particular, number 10 and number 7 and number 3. I appreciate those edits and making number 2 simpler. On number 4, I would, as your CEO, and in line with what Marcus, with what Director Pimentel was saying, and keeping it broad, I would not recommend putting something in about not selling, quote unquote, the business, however you would put that, just to keep that, whatever that means, open. I could anticipate that a potential partner would find value benefit in having the license under their purview for contracting purposes, whatever else it might be, and the benefit to the services may be enhanced by that. I don't know that that will be the case, but it may be, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that we wouldn't want us to limit ourselves to that piece of it. That would be my thought on that.
I understand. My thought is, as the district, we have much less control if the business is sold to someone else. I think that's my rationale.
I think there's, if we want to stick on those and dive a little bit deeper into the 3 or 4, I think that those are really the sticking points. Unless we want to go around and come back to those after we get some edits and just general thoughts from the rest of the board. We do have, are still in the questions part of the item, and so if there's any other questions for Steve or for the ad hoc committee at this point, then I'll open up to public comment and we can come back to discuss.
Question just of this old brain. Remind me of what the next steps were, and if the board's gonna take action, provide some direction, and then the ad hoc work with staff, what next? Can't predict exactly, but like, what might the next steps look like?
But the goal would be to get to a point where the ad hoc committee brings something back to the full board and say, hey, we've got this one option, or we've got these 2 options. How do we want to proceed? Hopefully we're bringing you something that the ad hoc committee feels comfortable with, feels like it's meeting our principles to the greatest extent possible and achieving our goals.
Yeah, well, I think we have I'm sure a few meetings scheduled over the next few days for the ad hoc committee to go over this and then also continue to chart the path forward. But I would like to, we're going to have a board meeting at the end of this month anyways. I'd like to come back with at least an update and earlier than that, and just do our initial conversations and possible path that we end up. We want to move quickly. We want to move to, so as long as it's here until 9 p.m., but as long as it takes for us to get guiding principles that we feel very comfortable with, ad hoc committee can move forward over the next few days on actual conversations. That would be rather than pausing and going back for more feedback.
The last question will lead us into just the work session where I think we're setting us up to anyway. Number 7, from a clarification standpoint, I'm looking at the track changes. You look at prior 11 and number 7. Struck the word independent. And I'm asking the question, independence of the hospital. New number 7 would imply that that's no longer protected, or the hospital might no longer be independent. And with the laws around the district, I'm wondering if that's, the district will always be independent of the hospital. Might consider options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if I could respond first and then let ad hoc committee members with their thoughts on it, but what I don't want to put us in a position with the guiding principles, one is we want to, they should help us achieve our goals, right? 2, they should also be the sort of the promises we're making to the community, or here's what we're looking to achieve. And I think if you're doing a management agreement or something else like that, whatever we're looking at here, whatever we're talking about, could be argued that the hospital's no longer run independently anymore, right? So there isn't really any sense in saying we want to maintain the independence, because that's not what we're actually trying to achieve anymore, right? We're trying to get help running the hospital. So I think that's where striking those words comes from in our guiding principles and in our overall language that we're using, from my perspective.
Your question is more about the district.
Yeah, I would counter, like, would, a wordsmithing standpoint, would you guys still use the same latitude as we, by district would remain independent, hospital is open to?
I would say yes, and I feel like that piece is covered in 6 and 9, in that we are indicating that we're going to continue to comply with SB 418 and the existing laws. And, that's all. Existing laws are subject to change too, right? So, I think in the interest of keeping things as open as possible so we can get something that really works for us. That's where we're coming from. Yeah.
Really just asking.
Yeah. So that's my take, but I'll let others weigh in as well.
Alex, do you want to?
One of the conversations we had last week kind of speaks a little bit, but I think we also discussed the fact that casting a wider net in the respect of less is more, I think, and so ensuring that we can get creative ideas from partners, and if we add more and more words and more restrictions, we're not allowing for that. That was the discussion we had last week. There were pieces we wanted to make sure were in there, but I think also I almost see we're getting back to many things we need that they bring, and to your point earlier, the board still holds the cards in the sense of, so we say, this isn't for us, and we go back. So I think there's still the stopgaps in there, whether or not it's in there, if we get to it.
And the way I was thinking about it, Mark, is in terms of the district, hospital, or district's independence, I would also not like to limit ourselves in terms of a potential partnership with state governments, right? As unlikely as that is, I know the joint JPAs and those sorts of partnerships take a really long time and a lot of public input together, and as unlikely as it is, I still like to think about that. I still like to have this conversation. I still agree. Interesting. Right. Any other questions? Okay, there's no other questions, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, online, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no raised hands, and I'll bring it in the boardroom. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close down the public comment and give one final request. Seeing no raised hands, I'll close down public comment and bring it back for discussion and appropriate motion from the board, although I believe we'll first. It sounded like we were going to circle back to number 3 and number 4. Then Marcus, if we wanted to continue to have that discussion on number 7, I'm happy to have that as well. And so I think from a kind of, if I could just ask a question after Noel. Noel, what would be the best process to put this together? Would it be to have one kind of document that we all agree to at the end of this, and then say, as you know, edits to the guidelines as approved in this document, or I'm sure that there will be a lot of variance within the board for various edits throughout this document. So, if any sort of direction on that would be helpful.
So if you think the board is gonna take a different position on each item 1 through 10, you may want to vote on them separately. If you think the board can vote on all of them together, maybe you might want to, you think you want to try that? But I'm hearing that there might be some modifications to some of the items. So there's no perfect answer.
Okay.
I've been capturing the edits as we go, so I can, if we want to do it whichever way, I can just read through them, the ones that are unchanged, unchanged as is, and the ones that are edited, I can read them as we've.
Yeah, if you have ones that are unchanged and nobody's commented on, you could take those in a grouping, if you wanted, and get those, handled.
I was thinking consent calendar style. Here's our 5 that we can all agree on that are procedural, and then we have discussions about the 3 or 4.
A motion that item 1 on the list on, page packet.
The new list, the new 1 through 10.
Yeah, different from the track changes list.
Yep.
Yeah. Items 1, 5, 6, 8, and 9 appear to have no comments, no questioning. And my motion is that we approve those as standing.
What, wait, can I clarify? Is that on the matrix or on the guiding?
The new 10 guiding principles.
Because number 5 has been changed. Well, the new number 5, the old number 5, right? The new number 8, right? I got it.
No edits.
We're just, so Noel, we're just looking at the page that has the guiding principles, September 2025, 1 through 10.
Right, but number
That's
5, there is any arrangement shall not dissolve the healthcare district and its board of directors. That's been changed.
Well,
But we're not proposing to change, we're okay with it as is.
They're
as presented.
they're
Okay,
okay
you're
with
okay.
as presented by the staff.
Okay, with the change. Understood,
As presented.
understood.
Okay. Do we understand the motion, and if so, can I get a second? Second.
Thank you. I'll take a roll on this item. Director Cox? Yes. Director Creel? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
And Attorney Newsom?
Yes. Okay, do we want to go numerically, or is there one that we think we're, want to approach first? So we'll go down to number 2. Steve, I think you were able to grab, some of the, for the edits as suggested by,
Yes.
Dr. Cox. Can you
Number-
read that out loud?
Number 2 suggestion is rewritten as arrangements must prioritize innovation, growth, and financial sustainability. Period.
Okay, if that's, acceptable to the board, I'll entertain a motion.
Say one thing, I feel like, I keep reading this and keep thinking, how do we protect access? Something that could be added in that sentence.
Arrangements must prioritize innovation, growth, and financial sustainability.
Access right before the Oxford Commons.
I think that's a really good point.
Access for all community members.
And I think that's fine, but I'd also emphasize that's included in our mission vision,
I know.
and I hear you.
It's also a law.
It's
I know. It
You know,
cannot be said enough times.
these are all the things you know, I know.
Yeah, so I think
Mhm.
we need to spell it out.
Access as the third one, Steve?
Just the word access.
I mean, it's a good question, that Steve, just the word access is, and then, when we're going over our mission, vision, values, the definition of access to one entity.
Can be anything.
Or
Yeah.
growth. Exactly. Access meaning they're able to access, exactly. All members of the district. All residents of the district. You're still looking for word missing?
Yeah, I've heard lots of different ideas.
How about,
I think
the first three as proposed, Steve, and then, so the first three were innovation, expansion,
innovation, growth,
and financial sustainability and equitable access.
Okay. Have a read through of that.
Equitable coverage.
Arrangements must prioritize innovation, growth, financial sustainability, and equitable access.
Guiding principle.
Thank you. I'll take a roll on this item. Director Cox?
yes,
Director Friel? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
And Chair Union.
Yes. Okay, number three, I believe most of the edits came in from Dr. Gallagher on this. And then,
Can read what I got?
please.
Arrangements must commit to honoring existing union relationships through the end of the existing contracts, negotiating future contracts in good faith with the unions currently at WCH, and retaining WCH employees with the ability to consolidate services for efficiency through attrition.
Joe, was there a negotiating future labor contract?
I said labor, I think that covers it, but I think it's more clear if it's labor contract.
I'll comment, I appreciate, and I think that's a really smart add. I wouldn't like to cite tension, but there may be a need to, move for another. Unions may want to discuss things that may be a benefit to you. And then do the same principle. I'd be okay with leaving extensions and adding the language, but I would agree, we feel that's a barrier.
It would read contracts, comma, negotiating extensions and future labor contracts.
Which are all implied. By law. I think it's a guiding principle. We do that anyways. That equitable access, might not see it. Don't be a harm. I stand in a room without a mic and be okay. I use the wrong version of that voice. My comment is, we as an entity, and a future partner would negotiate any union agreement in good faith. That's the guiding law, that we're gonna do that. So whether it's a existing contract, an extension, or a future contract, it's still gonna happen. So I would just make sure, I think it's fine to leave it as extensions, and I appreciate the addition of future labor contracts. We're gonna do that anyways, our partner's gonna do that. I'm just advocating to leave the word extensions, otherwise it looks like we won't entertain the idea of extension. We might want to entertain the idea of extension. It's an open
that written down?
I do.
Okay.
Number 3, arrangements must commit to honoring existing union relationships through the end of the existing contracts, negotiating extensions and future labor contracts in good faith with the unions currently at WCH, and retaining WCH employees with the ability to consolidate services for efficiency through attrition.
Can I get a motion for that, or how do we approve?
Yes? Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes. No, but I think Julie wanted to, yeah, Julie's okay to comment.
Yeah, yes.
Julie, go ahead.
That one last one we were talking about, the one word that was bothering, or the one little segment of that was bothering me was when it was talking about something like negotiating future contracts with existing unions. Do we really need the existing in there? Because I could see a partner either adding a union or potentially their similar workforce is in a different union and then wanting to maybe migrate, from one union to another. Probably not a popular thing, but it was just that word of like, it felt a little bit restrictive, like you can only have the 5 unions and nothing more, nothing less.
My response would be that I've seen employers without sham union, try to completely control, so that's why I put in this.
I didn't hear that.
And I can comment, I appreciate the staff, really appreciate that comment, and I think that nothing here precludes us from that actually happening. If something were to happen and we, our partner, or wanted to form, allow a new union to form, this language doesn't preclude us, so I think we're fine.
I don't know if I heard all of the conversation there, but I don't think I heard a response, and it's okay, but that it just sounded like the word existing was restrictive. Are you saying you don't think the word existing restricts us to just the 5 unions that we have currently?
It does not, because it doesn't, the language is not about, we will only ever have the 5 unions we have now. It just says, the existing contracts we're gonna honor, but it doesn't preclude us from doing something with a new union or forming a new union. There's no restrictions on that. It's really focused on making sure at least the existing, at a minimum, is continued forward. We're not limiting, this language doesn't limit us to just who we are now.
Well, I don't know if I was clear though. Sometimes like some of your service workers, but service isn't the right word, but some of your, like I've been at places where your rad techs might be in SEIU and ours are not in SEIU. So what happens if a potential partner says, we're happy to keep them in a union, but when we go to negotiate, we really think they should all be in SEIU, as an example. That was where the existing was kind of catching my ear.
To me, Julie, the guiding principle would just state that they have to negotiate in good faith with those unions to get to the right solution.
That's I think the right intention.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
And I think, to the point that Dr. Gallagher was making was, the 5 unions that are already operating out of Watsonville Community Hospital, if there is another union that is, Dr. Gallagher stated, like a quote-unquote sham union that someone might establish, this is to protect those 5 from having those sorts of negotiating rights encroached upon by the, different kind of view. So,
And these are guiding principles, it's not contract language.
Yeah, that's right.
And I do want to, again, thank you, Julie, because this conversation is actually helping make sure we are clear about it, and the staff and the ad hoc are talking about this. They'll have additional clarity to keep it. Good conversation to have.
yeah, so I think going forward also, I'll pause and I'll do some, take some we approved number 3, with the stated changes. Number 4, Steve?
So I did hear Director Gallagher's thoughts on this one, but I didn't make any specific edits because I wasn't sure if there were specific edits or what the specific edits were being requested. So I'll just read it. The district shall maintain ownership of the property and the capital assets throughout and after the term of any arrangement.
So can I add maybe just a little bit of clarification that might help
Yeah.
the board? So I think what staff is trying to make sure here is in the enabling legislation, SB 418, the language says, and it's not very well written, that the district is dissolved if the district sells Watsonville Community Hospital to another entity. So what exactly that means, it's probably the assets, probably the land, probably the business, but it's a little unclear, just to address Dr. Gallagher's distinction that he was making. But I think, Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is the intent of staff, to make sure that that covenant is preserved.
It is my intent, and then it's a matter of, in the nuts and bolts of how it all functions, my sense is we are steps away. We have substantially less control. Be able to say to a potential partner, what you're doing is inadequate.
Sure.
It's our business.
Right, it's our business, so, okay.
It does restrict, I understand.
If there are no edits, I'm comfortable moving a motion to approve item 4 as.
We're covered by 418. Good enough. Okay with that.
So Noel, just so I understand this, so with item 4 as written, then this would, according to 418, be up to interpretation as to what we could continue to, what sort of role we could continue to have as a leader at Watsonville Community Hospital, depending on what someone might interpret ownership of Watsonville Community Hospital, or what was the exact language of 418?
The language is, if the district sells the Watsonville Community Hospital to another entity or stops providing healthcare services at the facility. It's kind of a different issue.
Right.
But so the way, the plain reading of that statute is, if the district were to sell the hospital, then the district would be dissolved. Not to say that the district may determine that that's in the best interest of the community, right? To sell the hospital. But I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that.
So how that could be interpreted is up to who?
The lawyers, but the conservative way to look at it is, you're not going to parse through that, right? Perhaps you could, I would interpret it to be, if you're selling the business of running the hospital, it's going to be triggered.
Yeah.
Kind of the plain meaning.
Right, yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation here at the table is that we feel, with that interpretation of 418, that number 4 can stand as is, the idea that the business
That's covered in 9. It's already
behind it.
You could maybe clarify it and say something like, in order to comply with 418 or something like that, if you want to be even clearer.
We've got that in 6.9 already,
You have
right?
a motion on the floor.
Right.
If there's no second, it dies, and we can edit.
So the motion on the floor is to, move forward with guiding principle number 4 as written. Do we have a second for that?
Okay, I'll take roll on this item. Director Cox? Yes. Director Creel? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
Chair Union.
Yes.
Okay, 5 and 6 have been approved. Number 7 had one word change. I'll read it as newly presented. Any arrangement must contain adequate protections to ensure the continued success of the district and hospital corporation at the end of any term.
There was that, and there was also comments made by Dr. Pimentel, I think, earlier.
I'm good with that, because they were really just clarification questions, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't take any edits out of yours.
Let it.
Okay.
I'll move approval. I'll say that as
Appropriate to adequate.
All right, thank you. I'll take roll on this item. Director Cox? Yes. Director Creel? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
Chair Union.
Yes.
Okay, 8 and 9 have been approved. Number 10, only not-for-profit or government-based agencies and only ones that already provide health care in Northern California shall be considered.
Questions that come to my mind right now. One is just like some semantics, grammar, because I was a math guy, okay? So.
I know, what are you doing talking about grammar for?
Was.
Yeah.
I hope still is.
One A teacher is killing me. I lost my train of thought, sorry. Only one, so we're restating that phrase, only one, meaning not-for-profit and government.
Or we could just make it agencies again, if we want to repeat it, which will be more clear. And only agencies that already provide health care in Northern California shall be considered.
At first, it doesn't matter again. Asking preference. And then, I can just ask a question, Dr. Gallagher, why Northern California? That seems very broad. And I was thinking locally, like, put a finger in here and 20 miles, but I think that helps you be from asking your clarification. And I'm okay with it as is. Sure, but I appreciated the. To me, locally was ambiguous. I didn't know. I plucked it out of the air. I'm happy to do a radius. But I thought most of the people that we are talking about reside or healthcare in Northern California.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, for two healthcare folks on the board, whether Northern California is practicing enough for the folks of which we would like to actually work with.
I made a note to myself, Northern California versus California. I think Northern California too.
There's no other questions or comments, I think Steve can read the.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it again.
Please.
Only not-for-profit or government-based agencies and only agencies that already provide health care in Northern California shall be considered.
Move to approve number 10 as stated.
Give it a second.
Thank you. I'll take roll on this item. Director Cox? Yes. Director Creel? Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Pimentel?
Yes.
And Chair Union.
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's meeting. Thanks so much. And, all of this.
Bye, Julie.
Bye, thank you.